switching to the East, if you look at the standings, it's really interesting because you look at the Bucks, they're league leading in the standings. And number 2, you have the Raptors who handle the Lakers. And then you've got the 76ers after acquiring Tobias Harris that look pretty strong. The Celtics are rounding things out. The Pacers are hanging in there. Which team do you think is really trending in the right direction? Or do you think it's anybody's game in the East to come out of the East?
It really is anybody's game. And, while I made a comment yesterday that the Rockets are the sort of the biggest threat to the Warriors out west, they may not ultimately be the biggest threat to the Warriors. The biggest threat to the Warriors may come from the Eastern Conference, where there's 4 teams, in my opinion, that have built a roster that can get to the NBA Finals and give the Warriors a run. And obviously Milwaukee with what they're doing, the addition of Kawhi and now Marc Gasol up in Toronto, to an already good team. What Philly's done with Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, putting those guys obviously around JJ and Ben and Joel, that may be one of the best starting 5s. And then, Boston comes into the season as the favorite. And, while they've had some ups and downs this year, when you get down to the playoffs, they're still one of the most talented teams in the league with a guy like Kyrie Irving leading the way. So to me, they're still the favorites to come out of the Eastern Conference, even though they're currently the 5 seed, because they have a core that was in the conference finals last year. When you have a core that has deep playoff experience together, I think that matters. That experience carries you through the playoffs this year, and I think they'll have a great shot at it.
Here with Frank Vogel, former NBA head coach, and you're speaking of favorite teams. How about favorite players? The NBA MVP race seems to be really interesting, largely because of James Harden averaging about 36 points per game. And then people also mention Giannis Antetokounmpo, who may not have those numbers, but 12 rebounds, about 6 assists. So it's going back and forth because the weight is most valuable to a team to some versus best player on best team, right? So where do you think the MVP race really relies upon right now?
Well, my personal interest has me wanting to vote for Paul George and the season that he's had, especially what he's gone throughout his career, going through the leg injury and coming back, through the years, taking gradual steps and ultimately, playing his best basketball of his career right now and is in the conversation of MVP. But obviously, you can't take it away from, the type of year that Giannis is having with Milwaukee. Best player on the best team is usually a parameter for voting for the MVP, and then the historic numbers that James Harden is putting up, obviously puts him right up there as well.
You're allowed to be biased. It's okay. I see that pace.
Yeah, I'm voting for Paul. I'm voting for my guy. That's all right?
Exactly. We all just wear it. That's all we can do on this one. We're talking to Frank Vogel on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Coach, it's back in the Western Conference. Obviously, not a team that's not a team or a player that are going to be involved in the MVP race or the playoff race. But LeBron James and the Lakers. There was an article in the Bleacher Report just the other day about the perception of LeBron James around the league right now with the injury this season, the lack of success for the team. And I'm sure you're someone who still talks to plenty of people around the league. How much has this year maybe not damaged but changed the way that people view LeBron James going forward?
To me, not a lot. I know it's been obviously disappointing and surprising year for the Lakers and for LeBron, but when you're in this league long enough, you recognize that, sometimes there's just things that happen throughout the course of the season that derail a team. And, that certainly happened with LeBron's injury, with Rondo's injury earlier in the year, Alonzo Ball, Ingram now being out. They've had a lot of issues with that. And, what you have to factor in is when a guy is out, you miss him during those games, but, for LeBron, he was out, 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever it was. Once he comes back, there's 5 or 6 games where he's trying to get his rhythm and timing back. So, that's part of the equation too. So it's just been a disjointed season for them. They know they're capable of better. And, I don't think the perception of LeBron has changed much at all.
We want to lean into your area of expertise. I want to know who you think is probably another favorite coach of the year. Everyone's probably saying Coach Bud, especially with what the Bucks are doing. You can't ignore McMillan because of the Pacers' win yesterday and how they're hanging on to number 3. There's so many candidates. Doc Rivers and how the Clippers are still relevant despite trading everybody and their mama. Who do you think is Coach of the Year at this point in the NBA?
Well, I'm going to be biased again and vote for my guy Nate McMillan, of course.
I'm here for it.
Yeah, and I'm not doing that because I'm biased. I think he's deserving. Just looking at what they've done, both with Victor and without, I think he would be the guy that a lot of people are going to vote for. I voted for him last year, when the coaches turned in their ballot, because he does a terrific job. And that's not to say that all these other coaches, what Doc Rivers is doing is ridiculous out there and impressive as always with him. Coach Bud, even look at Coach Pop. For the first time in his long career, he doesn't have his core guys that have always been there with him, and they've still been able to have a great season, put themselves in the thick of the Western Conference playoff race where a lot of good teams fell off. So there's a lot of worthy candidates. I'm going with my guy, Coach Nate.
We're talking to Frank Vogel, former NBA head coach. Coach, before we let you go, we started with Zion. We'll end with Zion. If you were sitting in an organization today as a coach, what kind of immediate impact do you think Zion makes in the NBA next year?
A large one in so many different ways. The excitement factor for your team and your fan base immediately goes through the roof. Wherever he ends up, he's just that dynamic of a player. And and then obviously what he's going to mean on the basketball court. I believe he's going to be a guy that's going to come in and help a team win right away. Obviously, he's going to be a young player, and young players take time to develop. I think everyone needs to be pumping the brakes on any kind of expectation that he's automatically going to turn a team into a playoff team or into a championship contender. Those things take time. But he's definitely going to be a very, very exciting element to a fan base and to an organization.